For privacy reasons, names and places have been changed. This story is inspired by true events.
On the morning of March 15, 2001, 8-year-old Aria Campbell was living every child's dream at Disney World's Magic Kingdom in Orlando, Florida. Clutching her princess autograph book and wearing Mickey Mouse ears, she boarded the Pirates of the Caribbean ride with her parents and baby brother. She never made it to the end of the attraction. Despite an extensive search involving hundreds of park employees, local law enforcement, and FBI agents, Aria seemed to vanish into thin air within the happiest place on Earth. For 18 years, her family lived with agonizing uncertainty, haunted by the last image of their daughter's excited smile as she pointed at the animatronic pirates. Then, in 2019, a former Disney employee stepped forward with information that would crack open one of the most disturbing cases in theme park history. This is the complete investigation into what happened to Aria Campbell. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy this content, consider liking and subscribing to our channel. Now let's continue. Spring break of 2001 dawned with the promise of magic for 8-year-old Aria Campbell. The morning sun had barely touched the spires of Cinderella Castle when the Campbell family made their way through the turnstiles of Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom, Aria practically dancing with excitement in her Belle-inspired yellow dress. The Denver family had saved for months for this trip, with Aria counting down the days on her princess calendar. Her mother, Rachel, would later recall how Aria's face lit up at the sight of every character, her autograph book clutched tightly in small hands, adorned with carefully painted fingernails that matched her dress. That morning unfolded like a dream. Aria twirled with Snow White, shared secrets with Ariel, and convinced her father, James, to ride the teacups 3 times in succession. Her 2-year-old brother, Tommy, toddled alongside, occasionally requiring attention from their parents, but nothing could dampen Aria's enthusiasm. As afternoon approached, the family made their way to the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. The wait was 45 minutes, but Aria didn't mind. She spent the time chattering about which princess she hoped to meet next, her long brown hair bouncing in its perfectly crafted ponytail as she shifted from foot to foot in anticipation. The boats were arranged in rows of 4, and the Campbells settled into their seats, Aria and James in front, Rachel and Tommy behind them. The vessel glided into darkness, the familiar musical notes of yo-ho, yo-ho floating through the air. Aria leaned forward, pointing excitedly at the animatronic pirates and their mechanical parrots. Halfway through the ride, Tommy began to cry. Rachel turned her attention to the toddler, trying to quiet him before his wails could echo through the attraction. James glanced back to check on his son, a momentary distraction that would haunt him for years to come. When he turned back, Aria's seat was empty. The next few minutes dissolved into chaos. James called out for Aria, his voice competing with the ride's soundtrack. Rachel clutched Tommy to her chest, scanning the darkness desperately. When their boat reached the unloading area, they immediately alerted the ride operators. Within minutes, the attraction was stopped, lights were raised, and security personnel began a thorough search of the ride's track and surrounding areas. As the afternoon wore on, the search expanded throughout the park. Security footage would later reveal a chilling detail. Aria, apparently unharmed, walking hand in hand with someone in a Disney cast member, uniformed through the crowded pathways near Frontierland. The employee's face was never clearly visible in any camera angle, and their destination remained unclear. Hours stretched into evening. The Magic Kingdom's usual closing fireworks were canceled as search teams combed every corner of the park. Rachel Campbell sat in the security office, Tommy asleep in her arms, while James paced endlessly. Their vacation photos from that morning showed Aria beaming in front of the castle, her smile wide and genuine, unaware that she was posing for what would become the last known image of her. The sun set on a very different Magic Kingdom that evening. As other families reluctantly filed out of the park, the Campbells remained, surrounded by law enforcement officers and Disney security personnel. Their daughter had vanished into thin air, leaving behind only a yellow dress found discarded in a service corridor, and a mystery that would take 18 years to unravel. That night marked the beginning of one of the most extensive missing persons investigations in Disney World's history, and the start of a nightmare that would reveal dark secrets lurking beneath the surface of the happiest place on Earth. By dawn the next morning, the Orange County Sheriff's Department had established a command center in a converted conference room at Disney's contemporary resort. Detective Michael Foster, a veteran of the department's major crimes unit, arrived to take charge of the investigation, his weathered face betraying the gravity of the situation. The first 48 hours would prove crucial. Lisa Wong, Disney's senior security liaison, provided Foster's team with complete access to the park's extensive surveillance system. They meticulously reviewed footage from every camera in a 2-hour window surrounding Arya's disappearance, building a timeline that ended with that final, haunting image of her walking with the unidentified employee. The employee roster for that day contained over 2,000 names. Each cast member who had been scheduled to work in or near Frontierland underwent preliminary interviews. Those authorized to wear character costumes or uniforms matching the surveillance footage were subjected to more intensive questioning. Yet no one could identify the person who had led Arya away. FBI agent Sarah Rodriguez arrived from the Bureau's Orlando field office, bringing with her the resources of the Crimes Against Children unit. Her presence signaled the growing fear that this was more than a simple missing persons case. Rodriguez immediately focused on the service corridors, the elaborate network of underground tunnels that Disney employees used to move throughout the park unseen. The media descended upon Orlando in force. Satellite trucks lined the parking lots as reporters delivered live updates against the incongruously cheerful backdrop of the Magic Kingdom. Rachel and James Campbell appeared before the cameras, their faces drawn with exhaustion, pleading for information about their daughter. The image of Arya in her yellow dress became a fixture on national news broadcasts. Wong worked to balance the investigation's needs with Disney's operations. Parts of the park remained closed as forensics teams examined the Pirates of the Caribbean ride and surrounding areas. Security protocols came under intense scrutiny. How had someone in a Disney uniform managed to remove a child from the park without raising any alarms? Tips began flooding in from across the country. Each required verification, each consumed precious time and resources. A waitress in Tampa thought she'd served Arya and a man breakfast. A tourist in Miami believed she'd spotted the girl at a gas station. A hotel clerk in Jacksonville reported a suspicious check-in matching the description. All led nowhere. Detective Foster's team expanded their search to encompass all of Central Florida. They interviewed street vendors outside the park, taxi drivers who'd worked that day, and employees at nearby hotels. They collected security footage from every business within a 5-mile radius. The evidence wall in the command center grew, covered with photos, timelines, and maps, but answers remained elusive. As days turned to weeks, the investigation began to stall. The Campbell family returned to Denver, leaving behind a team of private investigators to supplement the official search. Agent Rodriguez continued pursuing leads, but each one withered under scrutiny. The Disney employee in the surveillance footage seemed to have vanished as completely as Arya herself. By the end of the first month, the command center had been dismantled. The media trucks departed one by one. Disney World resumed its normal operations, though a subtle unease lingered beneath the surface of its carefully maintained cheer. Detective Foster kept the case file on his desk, reviewing it regularly, unable to shake the feeling that they had missed something crucial. But for now, Arya Campbell had become another photograph in a growing file of unsolved disappearances, waiting for the breakthrough that would take another 18 years to arrive. As summer faded into autumn in 2001, the search for Aria Campbell settled into an agonizing pattern of diminishing returns. Detective Micah L. Foster's once bustling command center had been reduced to a single desk in the Orange County Sheriff's Department, its walls still adorned with Aria's smiling photographs and increasingly dusty timeline charts. The promising leads that had energized the investigation's early days had evaporated one by one. The Disney employee uniform discovered in a dumpster behind a Kissimmee gas station proved to belong to a part-time custodian who had quit months before Aria's disappearance. The suspicious phone calls to the Campbell home turned out to be the work of a troubled teenager in Nebraska seeking attention. Rachel and James Campbell maintained their vigil from Denver, calling Foster's office daily at first, then weekly, their voices carrying the weight of fading hope. They appeared on national television shows, their story wedged between segments about cooking and celebrity gossip. Each appearance brought a new wave of tips. Each tip led to another dead end. FBI agent Sarah Rodriguez refused to let the case slip entirely into obscurity. She meticulously cross-referenced Aria's disappearance with similar cases across the country, searching for patterns that might reveal a larger operation. But the unique circumstances of the Disney World abduction stood alone, frustratingly singular in its execution. By 2003, the case file had grown thick with false leads and exhausted possibilities. The surveillance footage that had captured Aria's last known moments had been analyzed by experts across the country. Enhanced, filtered, and studied frame by frame, it yielded no further clues to the identity of the person in the Disney uniform who had led her away. Lisa Wang, the Disney security liaison, implemented sweeping changes to the park's employee verification systems. New ID badges included biometric data, and the underground tunnel network saw the installation of additional security checkpoints. But these measures felt like closing the stable door after the horse had bolted, offering cold comfort to the Campbells and their supporters. The annual remembrance ceremonies grew smaller each year. On the 5th anniversary of Aria's disappearance, only a handful of people gathered at the Magic Kingdom's entrance to release yellow balloons into the Florida sky. Local news crews filmed brief segments, their reports growing shorter, relegated to the end of broadcasts as newer tragedies demanded attention. Detective Foster kept a photo of Aria on his desk, her yellow bell dress bright against the castle backdrop. He would find himself staring at it during late nights at the office, wondering about the crucial detail they must have overlooked. The Disney employee roster from that day had been scrutinized countless times, yet the mystery figure remained unidentified. A ghost in a corporate uniform who had somehow slipped through every security measure. The case's legacy lingered in subtle ways. Parents held their children's hands tighter in theme parks. Disney World's character meet and greets underwent strict procedural changes. Security guards watched the crowds with sharper eyes, haunted by the knowledge that someone had once exploited their systems so effectively. By 2005, the Aria Campbell case had officially gone cold. The active investigation files were transferred to storage, joining countless other unsolved mysteries in the department's archives. The tip line, once flooded with calls, fell silent. The dedicated email address received only occasional spam. Rachel Campbell had given birth to another daughter, but refused to take her to Disney World or any theme park. James threw himself into advocacy work for missing children, though he rarely spoke publicly about Aria anymore. The pain had not diminished, but it had transformed into something quieter, more personal. The case seemed destined to remain one of those haunting mysteries that occasionally resurface in true crime documentaries and late-night conspiracy forums. No one could have predicted that 14 years later, a former Disney security guard named Marcus Thompson would finally break his silence, carrying the weight of a secret that would shatter the facade of the happiest place on Earth. In January 2019, Marcus Thompson sat in his modest Tampa apartment, hands trembling as he finally typed out the email that would break 18 years of silence. The former Disney World security guard had carried the weight of his knowledge like a stone in his chest, each year adding to its crushing mass. The email, addressed to Agent Sarah Rodriguez at the FBI's Orlando field office, began simply, "I know what happened to Arya Campbell, and I can no longer live with my silence." Thompson had been 26 years old in 2001, a relatively new addition to Disney's security team when Arya disappeared. In the chaos of that spring afternoon, he had noticed something unusual. Thomas Mitchell, a maintenance worker, accessing restricted areas without proper documentation. But before Thompson could report his observations, he received an anonymous note in his locker, accompanied by photos of his young daughter at her elementary school. The message was clear: speak up, and his own child would disappear. For Thompson, a single father, the threat paralyzed him with fear. He watched silently as the investigation floundered, as the Campbell family suffered, as years slipped away carrying their burden of guilt. What finally broke his silence was a chance encounter at a grocery store. Thompson had spotted Mitchell, now graying but unmistakable, leading a child-focused community organization. The sight of him working with children again shattered Thompson's carefully constructed walls of justification. In the following weeks, Thompson provided Agent Rodriguez with a detailed account of his observations from 2001. He produced copies of maintenance logs he had secretly photographed, showing Mitchell's suspicious pattern of accessing the underground tunnel system. Most crucially, he had kept the threatening note and photos, preserved in a sealed envelope all these years. The evidence painted a disturbing picture. Mitchell had exploited his maintenance position to gain extensive knowledge of the park's blind spots and security gaps. He had access to multiple sets of staff uniforms and the ability to move freely through service areas. Thompson's logs showed Mitchell had been working in the Pirates of the Caribbean area the day Arya vanished, though his name had somehow been omitted from the official employee roster provided to investigators. Lisa Wong, still serving as Disney's security liaison, was devastated by the revelations. The careful system she had helped build had been circumvented by someone who understood them intimately. The threatening note Thompson received suggested Mitchell hadn't acted alone. Someone with access to security personnel information had helped target Thompson and possibly silenced others. Agent Rodriguez assembled a new task force within days of receiving Thompson's email. As they delved into Mitchell's history, a pattern emerged. He had worked at several theme parks across the country, each job ending shortly after unexplained disappearances or suspicious incidents that had never been connected until now. Thompson's testimony opened floodgates. Other former Disney employees came forward, sharing similar stories of intimidation and suspicious observations. A former custodial supervisor recalled Mitchell's unusual interest in learning the timing of security patrols. A retired gift shop worker remembered him frequently changing uniforms throughout his shifts. For Marcus Thompson, breaking his silence brought both relief and renewed terror. The FBI placed him under protection as they built their case, but the guilt of his long silence haunted him. In a recorded interview, his voice breaking, he addressed the Campbell family directly. "I failed you. I failed Arya. My fear kept me quiet, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to make that right." The evidence Thompson provided became the foundation for a massive new investigation, one that would finally begin to unravel the dark truth behind Arya Campbell's disappearance. His courage in coming forward would ultimately expose not just a single predator, but an entire network that had operated in the shadows of the theme park industry for decades. As Agent Sarah Rodriguez reviewed Marcus Thompson's evidence in early 2019, the scope of the investigation expanded far beyond what anyone had initially imagined. The conference room walls at the FBI's Orlando field office quickly filled with photographs, timelines, and connection maps that stretched back nearly 2 decades. Thompson's documentation provided the first concrete timeline of Thomas Mitchell's movements on the day Arya Campbell disappeared. The maintenance logs revealed Mitchell had accessed the Pirates of the Caribbean service area 6 times that afternoon, far more than his duties required. More disturbing were the patterns that emerged when cross-referenced with other incidents. Mitchell's shifts consistently overlapped with 3 other reported missing persons cases from 1998 to 2003, cases that had never been connected. Rodriguez assembled a specialized task force, bringing together veteran investigators from multiple jurisdictions. They began the painstaking process of reconstructing Mitchell's employment history, revealing a troubling pattern of short-term positions at theme parks across the country. Each stop in his career coincided with reports of suspicious activity or missing children, though none had previously been traced back to him. The breakthrough came when analysts discovered Mitchell's connection to Dr. Patricia Anderson, a respected Orlando child psychologist. On the surface, their relationship appeared innocent. Anderson had provided employment references for Mitchell at several parks. But deeper investigation revealed Anderson had purchased multiple properties through shell companies, including an isolated tract of land outside Tampa. Lisa Wong, working closely with the task force, provided crucial insight into how Mitchell had exploited Disney's security protocols. The underground tunnel system, known as utilidors, created a hidden network beneath the park. Mitchell's maintenance role granted him unrestricted access, allowing him to move through the park unseen and emerge in different locations wearing different uniforms. The investigation uncovered a sophisticated operation. Mitchell wasn't working alone. He was part of a carefully orchestrated network. Dr. Anderson's professional reputation had been used to deflect suspicion, while her properties served as temporary holding locations. The group had exploited the massive daily turnover of theme park visitors, knowing that in the chaos of thousands of families, a single missing child might not be immediately noticed. Former employees began coming forward with new information. A retired security guard remembered Mitchell's unusual interest in surveillance blind spots. A former gift shop manager recalled him frequently using the staff areas to change costumes multiple times during shifts. Each piece of testimony added detail to the emerging picture of a predator who had learned to hide in plain sight. Rodriguez's team made another chilling discovery when they analyzed Mitchell's phone records. Regular calls to numbers across the country suggested a network far larger than initially suspected. The pattern of communication spiked just before and after reported disappearances at various theme parks, creating a timeline of activity that stretched from coast to coast. The investigation moved with careful precision. Surveillance teams monitored Mitchell's current activities, while undercover agents traced his connections. Dr. Anderson's practice became the subject of intense scrutiny, her patient records suggesting possible connections to human trafficking networks in South America and Eastern Europe. As winter turned to spring in 2019, the task force accumulated enough evidence to begin closing the net. They had mapped the organization's structure, documented its methods, and identified key players. But for Agent Rodriguez, one question remained paramount. Would this finally lead them to Arya Campbell and bring closure to the family that had waited 18 years for answers? The investigation that had begun with one security guard's confession had uncovered a criminal enterprise operating within America's theme parks, using the very infrastructure designed to create happiness as a tool for unspeakable crimes. As the task force prepared to move against Mitchell and his associates, they knew they were on the verge of exposing a darkness that had lurked beneath the surface of these fantasy worlds for far too long. The arrest of Thomas Mitchell unfolded in the pre-dawn hours of a humid Florida morning. FBI agents surrounded his modest Kissimmee home while he slept, blissfully unaware that 18 years of carefully constructed secrecy were about to crumble. When Agent Sarah Rodriguez read him his rights, Mitchell's face remained eerily calm, betraying years of practiced deception. The interrogation room at the Orange County Sheriff's Department held an air of surreal tension. Mitchell, now 54, his hair gray at the temples, sat across from Rodriguez and Detective Foster for 11 hours. His composure began to crack only when Rodriguez methodically laid out the evidence: Thompson's maintenance logs, surveillance footage, phone records, and property documents connecting him to Dr. Patricia Anderson. Mitchell's eventual confession revealed an operation more extensive than investigators had imagined. He described how he had first been recruited by Anderson in 1997, drawn into what she called special adoptions for wealthy international clients. The theme park position had been carefully chosen, a maintenance role that offered maximum mobility with minimum scrutiny. The trafficking network operated with frightening efficiency. Mitchell would identify potential targets, usually children whose parents seemed momentarily distracted. Using various Disney costumes stored in service areas, he could approach children without raising suspicion. The underground tunnel system provided perfect extraction routes, leading to service exits where vehicles waited. Dr. Anderson's role proved crucial. Her respected position as a child psychologist provided cover for the operation. She used her practice to create false documentation for the trafficked children, while her properties served as temporary holding sites before children were moved out of the country. Her professional connections helped deflect suspicion and suppress investigations. During his confession, Mitchell revealed the fate of several missing children, including Aria Campbell. His voice remained detached as he described leading her through the tunnels, telling her they were taking a special princess tour. The yellow dress that had been found was no accident. It had been deliberately planted to mislead investigators into thinking she had changed clothes and left the park. The investigation expanded rapidly. 4 more arrests followed within days. Dr. Anderson was taken into custody at her office, maintaining her professional demeanor even as agents discovered hidden rooms in her basement containing children's belongings and forged documents. 2 former park employees and a transportation coordinator were also arrested, their roles in the network finally exposed. The scale of the operation stunned even veteran investigators. Records seized from Anderson's home and office revealed a decade-long enterprise that had trafficked dozens of children through theme parks across America. The organization had exploited the natural chaos and excitement of these environments, where children's enthusiasm and parents' momentary distractions created perfect opportunities. Mitchell's testimony led investigators to Anderson's property outside Tampa. There, in a remote corner of the land, forensic teams made the discovery the Campbell family had dreaded for 18 years. Aria's remains, along with those of 2 other missing children, were recovered from unmarked graves beneath a stand of cypress trees. The case that had haunted Disney World for nearly 2 decades had finally broken open, revealing a criminal enterprise that had operated in the shadows of American family entertainment. The happiest place on earth had harbored a darkness few could have imagined, and the full scope of its victims was only beginning to emerge. As news of the arrest spread, more families came forward, their missing children cases sharing haunting similarities with Aria's disappearance. The network's reach extended beyond Florida, touching theme parks in California, Texas, and overseas. What had begun as one security guard's confession had exposed an international trafficking operation that had exploited the trust and joy of family entertainment to commit unthinkable crimes. The resolution of the Aria Campbell case sent shockwaves through the nation's consciousness, forcing a painful reckoning with the vulnerability of spaces meant for childhood joy. In the wake of the arrests, the Campbell family made their first return to Orlando since their daughter's disappearance, this time to receive the closure they had sought for 18 years. Rachel and James Campbell stood hand in hand as forensic investigators guided them through the grim discovery on Dr. Anderson's property. The yellow hair ribbon found with Arya's remains matched the one visible in their last family photo at Magic Kingdom, providing final, heartbreaking confirmation of their daughter's fate. Rachel later described the moment as both devastating and liberating, the uncertainty that had haunted them for so long, finally giving way to grief's heavy certainty. The prosecution of Thomas Mitchell and his co-conspirators became one of the highest-profile criminal cases in Florida history. The trial lasted 6 weeks, with testimony from former park employees, security experts, and the families of victims painting a devastating picture of systematic exploitation. Mitchell received multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole. Dr. Patricia Anderson, whose respected position had provided cover for the trafficking operation, was sentenced to life plus 40 years. Marcus Thompson's testimony proved crucial in securing the convictions. His detailed documentation and eventual courage in coming forward helped prosecutors establish the timeline of the trafficking network's operations. Though tormented by his years of silence, Thompson's actions ultimately helped bring justice to dozens of families. The Campbell family, in an extraordinary gesture of forgiveness, publicly thanked him for finally speaking out. The case sparked massive reforms in theme park security nationwide. Disney World completely overhauled its employee screening processes and access protocols. The underground tunnel system, once a source of operational efficiency, underwent extensive security upgrades. Biometric scanning became mandatory for all employees, and security cameras were installed in previously unmonitored areas. Lisa Wong worked with industry leaders to develop new standards for child safety in entertainment venues. The ARIA protocol was established, creating a unified response system for missing children reports across all major theme parks. Regular security audits and employee background checks became more rigorous, with particular attention paid to positions offering access to restricted areas. The impact extended beyond theme parks. Congress passed the Theme Park Security Act of 2020, requiring enhanced safety measures and employee screening at all large entertainment venues. The legislation, informally known as Aria's Law, established federal oversight of security protocols and mandatory reporting requirements for suspicious behavior. A memorial garden was created near Disney World's entrance, dedicated to Aria and other victims of the trafficking network. The centerpiece, a bronze statue of a young girl releasing butterflies, became a powerful reminder of innocence lost and the responsibility to protect society's most vulnerable members. The garden included educational resources about child safety and trafficking awareness. For the law enforcement officers who had carried the case for so long, the resolution brought mixed emotions. Detective Michael Foster, who had kept Aria's photo on his desk for 18 years, attended her proper burial service. Agent Sarah Rodriguez continued working with theme parks nationwide, helping implement new security measures and training protocols. The Campbell family established the Aria Campbell Foundation, dedicated to preventing child trafficking and supporting families of missing children. Their advocacy helped secure funding for expanded law enforcement resources and victim support services. Rachel Campbell became a prominent speaker on child safety, turning her family's tragedy into a mission to protect others. In the years following the case's resolution, theme parks saw a fundamental shift in their approach to security. The balance between magical experience and safety protocols tilted firmly toward protection, with most parents welcoming the enhanced measures. The industry's mantra evolved from pure entertainment to safe magic, acknowledging their fundamental responsibility to protect guests. The case's legacy lived on in countless ways, from changed security practices to strengthened laws and heightened awareness. While nothing could undo the tragedy of Aria Campbell's loss, the exposure of the trafficking network and subsequent reforms meant that her story had helped protect countless other children from similar fates. In the end, the happiest place on Earth had become a safer one, though the cost of that transformation would never be forgotten.